Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to I Heart Movies. Today we're doing another movie in my, I guess, unofficial sci-fi series. I love sci-fi and I'm trying to do more of them, but I guess I don't really have a set series for these like I do for the Disney Movie Marathon or I Heart Animation. But when it comes to sci-fi, I have a lot of blind spots. Of course, I see all the big mainstream stuff that comes out nowadays. I love Star Wars, I go to all the Marvel movies, I see most of the superhero stuff, Jurassic films, etc. But there's a lot of stuff I've never seen, whether it's a bit more niche or indie, or, as in the case of today's film, actually two factors, older than me and R-rated. I tend not to watch too many films older than I am, with the exception of animated films and anything I'm working on for the podcast, so the number of classic sci-fi films I've seen is a lot smaller than I would like. And then there's the rating aspect. Even with today's films, I tend to avoid R-rated films. I don't like gore, I don't enjoy realistic violence, and due to my personal upbringing, I tend to avoid most language and nudity. My views on movie ratings have definitely evolved over the years, but even though I don't automatically label R-rated movies as bad movies like I would have been taught to growing up, I still tend to avoid them personally, and I can't really explain why. I think I've probably been mildly brainwashed, but when a movie is rated R, it's almost a 100% guarantee that I will have zero interest in it. Like, even if I have nothing against the film, if I see the R rating on the poster, it's like the opposite of a Pavlov's bell. I usually just can't be bothered to care anymore. I don't know. It's just, I see the R, meh, don't care. There has to be a lot of buzz for an R-rated movie to even pique my interest in the slightest. Like when Parasite became such a big thing, that ended up being the first R-rated movie I went to and paid money to see in a theater. It definitely wasn't my first R-rated movie I ever saw, but that's a rabbit trail for another time. Anyway, for a variety of reasons, I have a lot of sci-fi blind spots, including some really massive and culturally significant films, like the subject of today's podcast, as well as the subject of next week's podcast, because this is going to be a two-parter. This week it's 1979's Alien, and next week we'll be talking 1986's Aliens. My friend Sam grew up with a lot of these films, a lot of stuff I didn't, including several that she will freely admit she probably shouldn't have been watching so young, but for better or worse, movies like Alien have gone on to become some of her favorite films, and now, like a good friend, she really wants to help me fill in some of my blind spots. She's kind of been after me on and off for years to watch Alien, so after we did our podcast on Jaws back in 2020, I finally relented, and I told her I'd watch Alien as long as we did another podcast about it. So we actually watched this at the beginning of last year, 2021, and then things kept foiling our plans to record the podcast, most notably me finally getting a full-time job, and that made it next to impossible to coordinate anything during the day like we used to. And somehow now we find ourselves here, well over a full year later, finally getting to Alien. We actually recorded this in May. I'm editing this in September, and it will probably release in October. So we're coming up on like a year and a half since we started working on this episode. And then somewhere in between last year and now, we decided to do both Alien and Aliens. So, like I said, we'll also be covering the sequel next week. And I don't know if this goes without saying or not, but I'm going to say it anyway just in case, because I usually aim to make my podcasts family-friendly, even if we're not necessarily talking about a family film. But with these two episodes, given the nature of the films and some of the things that happen, there's not really a way to sanitize some of what we're going to be talking about. So if podcasts had a rating, I'd probably give these episodes a PG-13, just to, give you a fair warning if anyone listens to these with their kids. I doubt anyone will listen to a podcast about Alien and aliens with children, but you never know. I don't know your life. So I figured I would just throw this out there, give you a warning, just in case. Okay, let's get into this episode on the original classic, Ridley Scott's Alien. Well, first, when did you first watch this?
I was probably 6. I asked my mom last night, I'm like, when do you think I first watched Alien and Aliens? I'm like, do you think I was like 10, like 4, 6? She goes, knowing you were 6 because you always snuck into the room when we were watching horror movies. We couldn't stop you from watching them. I'm like, I'm thinking probably 6.
Okay.
Yeah, because that one came out in 79, and then Aliens came out when I was 3, so I may have watched the second one when I was 6 as well. But either way, I was a little young. But it really really fueled my love for old horror movies. you know. And I'm going to say, when you texted me last night, I need to watch the movies again. I'm like, you're so much better than me. I didn't rewatch one of them. I was like...
Well, you're probably more familiar with them.
I know. I was like, I should watch those too. And then I'm like, nah. I got it. I'll wing it. It'll be fine. I remember those movies.
I ended up watching them. Alien I'd watched twice already, so I watched it on 4x speed.
Oh. I bet that was entertaining.
I couldn't understand a thing they were saying, but I just wanted to make sure I got everything in order in my notes.
Right.
And then I watched Aliens on double speed, because I'd only seen that one once.
Mm-hmm. Such a good movie.
So I've now been refreshed.
Refreshed with the xenomorphs. And just so we're clear, I have no interest in doing Alien 3.
The way you've talked about them, I kind of figured that.
And I am not touching Alien Resurrection, the fourth one. It's a dumpster fire. It's complete garbage. Okay. It's just a horrible movie. It really is bad. I think I saw it in theater, and I remember just being like, what happened to my franchise? Like, if you want to see what happens when a franchise goes too far. And then there's the prequels, Prometheus, which is fine. I fell asleep. And then there's Alien.
That's better than being furious with the movie.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at it. I mean, I could be mad at it, but I just thought it wasn't necessary, and it doesn't go with the timeline. Then there's Alien Covenant, which I have not watched. My dad loves it. He says it's great, but he likes just about anything that's got action that he doesn't fall asleep during. And I know that they have a next one in the works. It's untitled. And then there's the Alien vs. Predator movies, 1 and 2, which are fun, but they're not good.
Okay.
They're PG-13, which, I mean, you can do an Alien movie PG-13. Like, the first one is R-rated for just a certain couple of scenes. It's not, like, graphically gory.
Mm-hmm. With the first one, I think they could have just clipped one or two things here and there. Well, if PG-13 even existed at that point. It didn't exist at that point.
No, PG-13 didn't start until... Well, I don't know.
I think it was after 1986, because 86, isn't that when Gremlins came out? And Gremlins was the catalyst.
It was Indiana Jones 2.
Well, both of them.
Yeah, both of them together.
Yeah.
Because Indiana Jones was fine, and then Indiana Jones 2, you got ripping hearts out of chests and eating monkey brains, and then Gremlins was advertised without the Gremlins. It just showed Gizmo. And so people brought their kids. And so PG-13 was born. Because Jaws is PG. Mm-hmm. Which...
It would not be today.
No, it would not. So, yeah. I think, though, in order for Alien to be a PG-13, you'd have to take out that chestburster scene. It's a lot.
Yeah, or cut around it in a different way.
Which would ruin it, because the whole point of it being so fantastic, you know how I feel, is that they don't cut away. Mm-hmm. But, anyway.
Well, I suppose I should say, for the listeners, I didn't watch this until last year, because you wanted to watch it with me. Yeah,
I said, you need to watch this. It's one of the best movies ever. We gotta watch it. So, which I know you thought it was fine. You thought it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's one of those, like, movies kind of like Halloween and stuff where it's kind of overhyped. Because I can tell, like, when I watched it with you, I kind of put myself in your shoes of how you saw it as opposed to somebody like me who's been watching it since I was little and just loves the series. Mm-hmm. You know, because, like, the part of the, you know, scenes with the alien are a little... Like, it's a dude in a suit. You can tell. But if you watch, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff, when you see them putting this guy... I can't pronounce his name.
I wrote it down.
Balhali.
I was going to say Balaji Badejo, but I don't know.
The Badejo, I think, is right. But he was, like, 7 feet tall.
I think I wrote that somewhere, too.
Yeah, and, like, when you see him in this...
6'10"
Yeah, round up.
7 feet tall.
I'm sure with the boots of the alien, probably. But, like, when you see the behind the scenes of him just sitting in the whole costume, it's just looks amazing. Like, it's really a work of art, what they created.
Yeah, I should have watched some behind the scenes stuff. That would have been interesting.
That's the kind of stuff I watch when I can't sleep at night. So I'm just like, oh, behind the scenes on how they made it? Hell yeah, I want to learn more. Tell me how they did it.
I used to be like so into behind the scenes stuff, but the past few years I've kind of gotten out of it, which is kind of ironic since I started getting into podcasting.
And talking
watch
about
more
movies.
of that stuff.
Yep.
But like when I was a teenager, when DVDs first came out and you got behind the scenes stuff, I was obsessed with all that. Like watch every single special feature. Watched all, like, if I didn't watch all of the extended edition Lord of the Rings special features, I watched most of them. And that's like hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of stuff.
It is. And actually, funny enough, I don't watch the behind the scenes stuff on DVD. It's more like something, like I said, if I can't sleep, I'm going to watch it like when I'm in bed, or if I'm like laying on the couch or something. Like if I put the DVD in, I want to watch the movie. Which I feel bad because I know some movies have really good, hilarious commentary, but I just find it online because I'm lazy.
Yeah. Well, I guess to start, we can go through the characters. There's not very many in the first film.
Yep, I made a note of that there's 7 main characters, then a cat, and then 8 if you count the guy who played the alien, and then 9 if you count the voice of Mother. So there's only 7. It's a very small cast.
Which I think works to its benefit. But trying to pick a favorite between the two,
it's difficult.
Yeah, the biggest point in the favor of the original is the cast. I liked the cast way better than I liked the cast of Aliens. Well,
the cast of Aliens, it's cannon fodder.
I was gonna say I kind of hated most of them.
I mean, and I loved a lot of them, but they're there to die.
That's kind of what I figured. I was watching and I was like, why did they write these people so annoyingly? And then I was like, they're all gonna die.
Yeah, they're gonna die. But yeah, like the first movie, like it was like Ridley Scott's, I think, first big movie was Alien, because he directed commercials and music videos, I think, before that. So he did a lot of the storyboards and stuff himself. And so his original budget was like $4 million. And then after they started seeing the script and stuff, then they bumped it up to $11 million. Thank God. I can't imagine how they would have made it on 4.
No.
Because the money didn't go to the cast. Because most of these people, I mean, like, yeah, Sir Ian Holm and John Hurt were pretty famous actors, but in like Sigourney Weaver, I think this was like her big breakout role. But they weren't like they are now, where you're going to get $5 million a movie and most of your budget's paying for your cast. Like an Avengers movie where it's $800 million to pay for your actors and then make a cartoon, basically, because of the animation.
Yeah, kind of. Because when I was watching it, I was thinking, this looks so good because of the sets.
Yes.
Like, the sets are what makes this.
Well, did you look up H.R. Geiger?
I have in the past. I didn't when I was making my notes.
He was the part of the special effects crew, and he's the one who designed the xenomorph. And he did all the artwork. It was his artwork that you see, like, when they go to the planet, and you see, like, the xenomorph artwork and stuff. And they almost weren't able to hire him because his artwork is so very disturbing and sexual. It's like a hard mix of erotica and body horror. That originally, when he started designing stuff, the studio was like, what is this? No. But they fought for it because they're like, no, this is going to be great.
Well, with the way it ended up looking, I mean, yeah, you can still see that kind of stuff in there, but it's so alien that it's, I mean, it's alien.
Which
for aliens
is ironic, since I think the part of the xenomorph process is based off actual wasps. There's a species of wasp that inject their eggs into another insect, and then when the eggs hatch, they eat their way out.
Oh, well, that's horrifying.
Which adds to the horror of the Alien, that it's like, it's based on kind of a real thing that actually happens in nature, instead of being something purely alien that would never happen. I mean, unless you're an insect, it's not going to happen to you. But
there's so many things that happen to insects that would be absolutely nightmarish if it was on a human level.
Don't ever Google botflies. Don't ever.
I feel like I have. I think I've wiped most of that out of my memory.
Sorry,
I don't want to go
bringing
back
up
to
triggering insect moments. But yeah, I think the budget and the small cast really is what really made Alien what it is. And a lot of movies, if you'll notice, the first movie, a lot of times there's not going to be a lot of guns. because they're big, their budget. Like in the first Deadpool movie, he fights mostly with his swords. And there's a whole joke about how he has 12 bullets and they have to make him work. And when I originally watched Alien, I kind of thought that was why they don't have guns to use mostly. But they said that throughout filming, they thought of that. They're like, why wouldn't you shoot the alien? And that's when they wrote in the acid blood. They wrote that in later after they had started filming and stuff. Because they needed a good excuse. Why wouldn't you shoot it? Which, yeah, you're in space. Why wouldn't you shoot it? And I think somebody said that because it's a mining corp ship.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
That they didn't have guns. But you'd think they might have something for self-defense. But they wrote in the acid blood because they're like, well, this is the perfect thing to keep you from shooting it. Which in the second one, the Marines find out real fast. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, let's go through the cast. Of course, we have Sigourney Weaver.
Yep, as Ripley.
And she's probably, of course, my favorite character. I don't know why she wouldn't be anybody's favorite.
Yeah, she's like, and she's the only one who follows protocol, which is why she lives.
Yeah. And she has a cat.
Jonesy. Everybody likes Jones. Though a lot of people died for that cat. I don't know, man. I like cats too, but...
That's true.
Like,
that's the one guy who was like searching for the cat, and that's when he got caught.
Brett. Yep,
Okay.
He's the one that he gets taken up the wire. And then there's Tom Skerritt as Dallas, the captain, who is like probably everybody's like second favorite character because
he looked vaguely familiar, but I don't know what I would have seen him in.
I guess I didn't even look to see what else. And then there's Veronica Cartwright, who was Lambert. I love that when they were casting for Alien, they purposely did not put genders or first names on the casting list. They just had their surnames, which is why they call each other by their surnames through the whole show. That way, when they wrote the script, they weren't purposely leaning toward a female character or a person of color or this. They just wrote it as they would write it, and then they picked whoever auditioned for the parts, they picked them for the parts. Though I think it was originally always planned that Ripley would be a woman. But I
could see that, but there's no reason the rest of them need to be something specific.
No, that's why they just did surnames, and you don't even find out their first names until Aliens when they're talking about the crew of the Nostromo and who died.
Okay.
And I thought that was a really smart way to write a script because then you don't have a lot of, everybody just talks the same. And of course, the famous John Hurt as Kane and Ian Holm as Ash.
Yes, of course. Those are the two people that I knew from other things.
Yep.
John Hurt I knew from Doctor Who because he's the war doctor.
Yep.
And Ian Holm, of course, is Bilbo Baggins.
Yep. What? John Hurt, what else was he in? Besides everything. I'm trying to think what I knew him from. I know it wasn't Doctor Who. I knew him from things other than Doctor Who. Because I was like, hey, it's that guy. I know it was something old. Obviously. Something I probably watched as a kid when I wasn't supposed to.
He was in the old Lord of the Rings.
Maybe it was that. He was a voice actor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Watership Down.
I have never actually fully watched Watership Down.
I haven't either, but they're on my list of when I get my animation podcast off the ground. Those are going to be one of the ones that I've got to do. Oh, he was the Horned King in the Black Cauldron.
I haven't fully watched that either, believe it or not.
Neither have I. That's one I've only got
Oh, well, yeah, he was in Spaceballs. He played Kane in Spaceballs.
Okay.
They have this scene where the chest burster comes out. Maybe that's where...
He was the same character in that?
It was because it was a whole big spoof.
I haven't seen that since I was a teenager, so I wouldn't have recognized.
I bet that's probably what I was thinking of him from was Spaceballs. Because I was like, hey, that guy looks... Oh, and Hellboy. That's right. He was Professor Broom in Hellboy. That was probably the big thing because I loved that first movie. And then he was Ollivander in Harry Potter. And he was in V for Vendetta. Then he was in Hellboy 2. And he was in Indiana Jones, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's just not a good movie. Yeah, it must have been Harry Potter, Spaceballs, and Hellboy that I recognized him from. Because, his filmography is big. He's done a lot. And then there's I think it's Yaphet Kotto, who was Parker, one of the mechs, who personally, other than Ripley, was my favorite character. Because he was just I don't know. He was entertaining to watch. You know, he wasn't, you know, none of the characters are one-dimensional. They all have personalities. Though I think my least favorite was probably Lambert. I don't know why. I just don't think she quite jumped off the screen for me as much.
I kind of forgot about her until I rewatched it last night.
I think of all the characters, she's kind of the most forgettable one.
Yeah, she doesn't do a whole lot.
Other than scream when the chest burster comes out, which... But, you know, they all can't equally shine. There's always going to be ones that outshine the others. So...
And I thought it was interesting. The ship's computer is voiced by someone named Helen Horton. And I looked her up, and she's the grandmother of Lily James.
Oh.
Who, whenever this comes out, I'll have just done a movie with her. We covered the remake of Cinderella.
Oh.
That'll be like a couple episodes before this.
Yeah, I saw that too, but the name didn't jump off the page for me because it's not like when you watch Aquaman and it's Mary Poppins as
That's true.
The sea monster.
It probably jumped out. I probably wouldn't have noticed except I had just done Cinderella when I looked it up, and so that name popped out at me.
Yep. And then the three cats that played Jones, but I didn't look their names up. I just know there were three.
And one thing that I liked about the cast too is that no one was particularly young.
No.
Like, they were all like middle-aged.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how old Sigourney Weaver was, but the rest of them, they're probably at least 30 or 40.
Yeah, you know, there's no teenagers. You don't get any of the teenage drama or squabbles or anything like that because they're all adults and they've worked together for years. They're professionals.
The one thing that I saw described them as truckers in space,
That's
which they kind of are.
Pretty accurate, actually. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Ridley Scott was kind of leaning towards that. Because that's how they act. You know, they're doing their job. They're driving their giant ship. And their U.S. cargo starship, the Nostromo, which is Italian.
I think the name came from a book,
Yep.
but I don't know what the book is.
It's called Nostromo.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the alien ships are named after this particular author, who I did not write his name, his books. Because in Aliens, their ship is named after the town that the Nostromo book takes place in.
Okay. One thing that I liked about the film was how it opens. It's like so quiet, and it's just kind of like exploring the ship for a while.
Yep.
I thought that was really cool. It reminded me of, you probably haven't even seen it. There's like a little 2-episode miniseries on Disney Plus that, what's it called? It's like Star Wars vehicle fly-throughs or something.
Oh, nope, I haven't seen it.
It explores the Millennium Falcon and a Star Destroyer.
Oh,
and
it just goes through the halls?
Going through the halls. And
yeah.
You just are looking at all the stuff that you don't normally get a close-up of in the movies. And then, of course, there's like the ambient noise of the ship around. It's just really cool, and that's kind of reminded me of that.
I might have to look that up, because that sounds like something I would like to watch, just because I love all the details that they have in those. Oh, Jerry Goldsmith did the music for Alien.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a very quiet...
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of ambient noise, especially during the more tense scenes, because that's what makes it tense. You don't need a music riff leading you up to a jump scare. You just want to, you know, especially at the end when she's going through the halls and all the steam and everything's beeping and the flashing lights and the flamethrower, and it's just her steps, and like you listening, like, where is it? Where's the alien? It's got to be here. So where is it?
Yeah, I really like stuff like that. And then when you meet the characters, they're in stasis. I thought it was just kind of weird that they're all in their underwear. I don't know why
originally they were supposed to be naked, so...
But even that, I don't feel like either of that really makes sense. Like, why do you need to have your clothes off when you're frozen?
I don't know. Maybe you sweat in your sleep or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's true.
Or maybe depending
but
how...
You're still sweating on the blankets underneath.
True. Maybe it's carbon clean. Yeah, all I know is originally they were supposed to be naked. And then the studio was like, nope, that's too close to pornography. Nowadays it wouldn't be. But back then they're like, no go, put them in their undies.
We're already letting you have the alien, man.
Yeah, we're letting you have all this really weird artwork that looks like something either out of your worst dreams or your best dreams, depending how you look at stuff. We're having this weird artwork on the wall, and you got these weird aliens that do things to people, so we're not letting you have the nudity, sorry.
So the main crux of the film is that they detect a transmission from, I'm not sure if it's a moon or a planet, but it's called LV-426.
Yep. I don't think it's not called that at the time, I don't think. They name it in Aliens because they go and colonize it.
I couldn't remember what it was, and so I had to look it up to write it down. So maybe they didn't say it.
Yeah. See, I should have rewatched it. I don't think they say it because I think it's in the second one when they're telling her, well, we've had people there for years, that they say the name of the planet, and she's just like, what? So, but yeah, they pick up a distress signal, and protocol is that they have to, investigate, even though we all know after you watch it, it's probably all a setup by
I wondered
Ash.
about that, yeah.
That they purposely went by here because the Wayland, is it Wayland?
Wayland Yulani. I should have written it down. I don't think I heard anyone say it.
I wrote
it. But I saw it in...
The Wayland Yutani Corporation, which is basically like the background villain of all these movies. They know something's there, which is... Because Ash has orders to bring it back, but we don't really learn when he gets these orders. Like, does he get it when they pick up the signal, or was he always programmed?
That's what I couldn't figure out, because it shows him on the computer, so I didn't know if he was like receiving a secret transmission at that point, or if he already knew something.
Yeah, if like but they don't say they were off course, so it's not like the ship was reprogrammed to go by this particular place on their way back, because they're coming home, because they have like, their ships full of ore or iron or something, whatever they were mining for. So I'm sure, like in the comic books somewhere, in
There's
the deeper
probably
lore,
a deep explanation somewhere.
Yeah, because this movie launched a massive franchise of there's 6 movies. Like I said, I think 5 with 1 in the works. There's comic books. There's video games. There's just so it's kind of like the way Star Wars, once it got to be books and comic books and video games, how the lore just exploded. Which is part of the reason why Prometheus and stuff just doesn't work for me. Because the lore just doesn't add up. But anyway. But yeah, so they get this signal they have to go investigate.
And this is probably stuff that you probably know at this point, because when they investigate, they find a crashed alien ship with this giant thing. Yeah. So you probably know what this thing is, and I don't.
It's an engineer. That's what they're called.
Okay.
They're named later on. That's kind of what Prometheus goes into, is the engineers, which just doesn't work out for me. But yeah, they find the crashed ship. I know it's got a name. I did not write that one down. And they, put on their little suits and go in and check it out. And you can see when they're climbing around the engineer and the signal's going off, at that time they think it's a distress signal. They find out later it's not.
It's
a warning. But you can see on the dead engineer, his chest is burst open. So he had one of those things in him, and that's when he sent out the warning. And then he died. Because, you don't usually come back from something bursting out of you. Even if you're that big.
Yeah. I love, backstory and lore and stuff. Even though I can see why they would want to add that stuff, and I think technically it's a good idea just because it's cool to find out stuff like that. I did like that was just never explained. Yeah. It's just kind of cool that they found this giant alien and they know nothing about it, and they can't know anything about it. There's no way for them to know anything about it.
No, and set up in this universe, as far as I know from these movies and stuff, there are no aliens. It's kind of like Firefly. It's just them. So when they find this big thing, they're like, what is it? Because, as far as we know, there haven't been any other aliens discovered that they had ever seen, because they don't talk about it. Like, they don't look at it and be like, oh, this is an engineer, or this looks like this thing. As far as I know, in that universe, the only thing out there is us. And also at the time, I don't think they realized what they were starting.
Probably.
It's not like Star Wars, which had a planned out trilogy, kind of. it was just one movie.
Yeah.
And it was the start of it. They weren't pulling from there weren't any comic books beforehand. This was all original.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just kind of going from there. Like, we're not going to go and explain stuff because this is a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to get to the horror,
Mm-hmm.
So, and the less you know, the scarier it is.
Yeah. And for this movie, I think it was a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of cool that you just never know. Even though it does raise questions that, in hindsight, it's like, I kind of want to know where that thing came from.
Yeah, and that's...
for the movie, I think it's cool that you
don't know.
there.
And then once you do get your answer, you're disappointed.
Yeah, that's kind of with a lot of things.
Yeah. Like, they do kind of explore that, but I don't want to get into it because it's just, I haven't watched those movies very much. Like, I think I watched Prometheus once, and like I said, I fell asleep. I haven't watched Covenant, but I've read the spoiler reviews. I've watched the movie breakdowns, and I'm just like, nah, I'll stick with the first two and call it good.
Well, besides this giant alien, they also find a huge nest, and Kane gets too close to an egg.
Like a good scientist.
Yeah. The eggs, I thought the design was really interesting because you could sort of see through them. You could see this thing kind of swimming around. And the top of the egg is like almost hinged.
The derelict. Sorry. That's the alien ship.
Oh, okay.
Well, are the planets the derelict? Okay, the derelict on Achurion LV-426. Okay, so yeah, it's the derelict by the alien juggernaut. Okay. Sorry. I had to look. It was driving me nuts. So the egg nest, yes.
Yeah, I like the idea of the egg not really needing to break. It just kind of hinges open.
Uh-huh.
The egg reminded me of something, but I don't know what.
Well...
It probably has been parodied in something that I'm vaguely remembering.
Yeah, I think Alien's one of these things that just also, other than the lore and the sequels, the pop culture from Alien is also just... It's referenced in so much, and so many movies have tried to recapture that fearful feeling of the claustrophobia of the film, and like the intensity and all that stuff. So yeah, you've probably seen it in just... pretty much anything that's going to have an egg opening, you're going to be like, that's Alien. But I like, going back to H.R. Geiger and the special effects crew. When they filmed it, they used, of course, there's some puppeteer and the guy's in a suit. But to make the creature effects, they used almost all organic materials. So the egg, when it opens up and you see that in there, they used cow hearts and... like sheep kidneys.
That makes sense because the point where they were like trying to
poke it,
operate on it, it looked very organy.
Well, the face hugger is made of oysters and shellfish and sheep kidneys.
Okay, I can see that.
Can you imagine how great that set smelled?
Probably all
with all the because they used an assortment of animal guts. And yeah, oysters, shellfish, sheep kidneys, guts, cow hearts, intestines. I bet it just smelled great. And then, of course, all the fake blood, which, depending what kind of fake blood they used, usually back then it was like corn syrup mixed with food coloring. But they may have used real blood if they already were going to the butcher for everything else, so...
Yeah, as gross as that is, it kind of makes sense because if you try especially back then, if you're trying to replicate... like
organic
an actual
life.
Creature like that, it would look very fake.
Well, and it makes you appreciate it because you're like, oh my god, like that looks real. Like that looks like a real slimy creature in there. Because they used real stuff to make it.
Several real slimy creatures.
Yeah, there's a lot of slimy things in there to make it look real. They just kind of Frankensteined it together. But yeah, so then Kane decides to poke the bear, basically. Let's poke it. At least he didn't take his helmet off.
Well, in the end, that didn't help.
It didn't help, but...
acided its way through.
Yeah, but so many movies, they're on an alien planet and they pop their helmet off. Oh, the air's breathable, but that doesn't mean it's safe.
That reminds me of, like, I'm one of the few people, it seems like, who loves The Last Jedi, but that scene when they're on Crate and the guy licks the ground, I'm like, what?
Don't lick it.
Why did you taste the ground?
That would have been like Kane taking his helmet off. Let's give this a lick and see what it tastes like. Like, bro, no. Keep your helmet on. Don't lick things. You're a scientist.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we get the hand, the puppet of the face hugger comes crawling out, and they kind of react like, oh, when in reality you'd think you'd scream.
Yeah.
And run, and then it just breaks right through the helmet, attaches to his face.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting and kind of a cool touch, the tail on the thing, the way it wrapped around his neck, and it's sort of like, I don't know how they did it, but it looks like it's actually contracting and tightening around his neck.
Yeah, it's part of the way to, it's part of the face hugger's threat of, if you try to remove me, I'm going to suffocate the host, which is why it's done that. Because if it didn't, it could easily just attach to the face, and then, again, bringing back to the H.G. Geiger's original artwork and how a lot of the alien stuff is very disturbingly sexual, that it shoves its, thing down your throat to lay egg in you. And if it wasn't worried about being ripped off, it wouldn't have to wrap its tail around. But that's the way it keeps anybody from just pulling it off their face.
So does it lay an egg, or does it put the, a fetus in you? Because I saw online, the one thing I was reading described it as it makes you the egg.
Well, I kind of wonder if it's back to the wasp thing, where they inject an egg or eggs, and then the eggs hatch and they eat their way out. So, I don't know. I guess every time in some of the later movies, they show the chest burster in the chest before it comes out, but they've never shown it hatching from an egg. So it could be a tiny fetus, kind of like how pandas are born. Just a tiny little pink thing.
Yeah.
That could be it too.
Well, I feel like it would make more sense for it not to be an egg, because they've already had one egg in the stage.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, that the life cycle of this thing is so strange. It's like it has an in-between creature because normally a thing lays an egg and then...
Well, it's like a butterfly. Butterfly comes from an egg.
Oh, yeah.
And then is a caterpillar and goes into a cocoon and comes out as a butterfly.
That's true.
But without the blood and gore of the xenomorph.
Well, depending on the butterfly, it can look kind of bloody.
Yeah, true. They don't look the best. But, yeah, it is a very unique... And I think that's part of the scariness, too, is it's like...
It's very inhuman.
Yeah, because you go from egg to face hugger to chest burster, which is basically just a baby alien. It's just the name. And then it grows up into the xenomorph, which, they're a colony kind of like ants. There's the workers, and then there's the queen, who is in charge.
I'm kind of wondering now, I didn't think of this before. You meet the queen in the second one.
Yes.
But was she somewhere on that planet when they arrived the first time? Is she 50 years old?
I don't think so. I think when the colony settled and they disrupt the nest, I'm guessing one of those face huggers impregnated a queen. And then so the queen goes through the same life cycle as the workers. She
just grew bigger than the rest of them.
Well, in a lot of insect colonies, look at bees. The queen bee's way bigger than all the workers.
Yeah.
Ants, I think, are the same way. Even a lot of animals, the females are bigger. Like great white sharks, the females are always bigger because they have, they're full of eggs and...
Anglerfish.
Yeah.
The male basically becomes a tiny little organ attached to the female.
Well, look at my guppies. My males look bigger than my females, but it's because they're all fin. It's like the females are bigger. It's a lot of species are like that. But that would be my guess, is unless she was in hibernation, which is possible, I'm guessing that when they disrupted those eggs, one just happened to be a queen.
Okay. That makes sense. But yeah, he has the face hugger, and they go back, and Ripley is the only person who wants to actually follow the rules and not bring him onto the ship.
Yeah, she's like, no, that's against protocol. He's got something on his face.
And Ash, the character played by Ian Holm, disobeys this. He makes them bring him in. And they try and get this thing off, but it ends up bleeding acid through several floors. And they didn't, I don't know how far down they followed it, but I was wondering, did it like eat all the way through to the bottom of the ship and now there's just a hole into outer space?
No, I think eventually it just kind of stopped because it just...
It would get watered down.
Yeah, I think it just, because it's like, it goes, but each floor it burns through, a little less falls through the next floor.
Okay.
That'd be my guess. Because I always thought that too. Because I was like, well, shouldn't it like eat the whole ship and have like a hole out the bottom? But then it would become less and less as it falls.
Yeah.
So, because if we had a hole in the bottom of the ship, well, then the mouse just end the movie.
But yeah, they can't get it off, but it eventually detaches on its own, and he seems fine the next day. Of course, he's not, because they go to eat, and he, like, has a seizure, and you get probably the most famous scene from the movie.
Yep. I like that when John Hurt, when they filmed this scene, his acting for his choking and the seizure were so good that the rest of the cast around him like legit thought he was choking on food and having a seizure. They were like, what's happening? And it's a good scene. Like, you watch it and it's very convincing. It's very convincing because you're like, help him. Like, someone help him. And then we get to my favorite scene personally, where he collapses on the table and starts screaming and convulsing, and you see like the wetness under the shirt, and then all of a sudden we get an angry little baby and blood and guts squirt everywhere. And when they filmed this scene, they didn't tell the rest of the crew what was going to happen. I mean, obviously Kane, obviously they didn't have something burst out of his chest. Like, his head was on the table and it was a fake body here, so that the puppeteers underneath could force this thing out. But they didn't tell the crew what was going to happen. They just said in the script, it says like the creature emerges. So, and they kept having to like start over because they couldn't get it to burst through right. So everybody kept getting closer because they're like, what's going on? So when it finally punches through and the blood squirts toward Lambert, her reaction's genuine. Because they didn't know that because it kept malfunctioning. So when it finally burst through, it was a little bit more forceful than they anticipated when they had his chest explode. So, because I imagine when they filmed the scene, the chest burster probably wasn't part of the burst. It was probably just a punch through with the blood squirting and spraying everywhere. But their reactions of like pure horror were real because they didn't realize that was actually going to happen. Which I love. Makes it all the better.
Well, I guess that's one way to get a genuine response out of someone.
Yeah, something's going to happen, but we're not going to tell you what. And then it's also not going to work right away, so come closer. You imagine watching that scene when you're 6? Yep, that was me.
I would have been traumatized.
I don't think I was.
I was traumatized by the scene in Aladdin where the genie says he can't bring people back from the dead and he turns into a zombie.
Oh my. Well, I used to hide behind the couch when the Abominable showed up in Rudolph. Watch Predator and Alien, but the Abominable, I think it was the eyes. They weren't quite right.
Different things scare different kids.
But, yeah, I just remember that. I mean, it's one of those scenes you don't forget because from a filmmaking standpoint, it's perfect. And especially once you learn what you learn about Ash later, when you watch it again and you watch him specifically, like...
Oh, I never thought to look for his reaction.
If you ever decide to watch Alien again, watch it again and just pay special attention to how Ash acts. Because it's, once you know, it's very different. You're like, oh, that is suspicious. But it was just subtle enough I didn't notice it the first time I watched it.
One thing about him that I noticed upon rewatches was him drinking milk.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know what that stuff is, but after you see the scene where he's revealed to be an android, you realize that wasn't milk.
In the filming, it actually was milk, and they said he hated milk, so they thought it was funny. And they used like cheap caviar and marbles and stuff to recreate his insides once, you know, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but... I love, how'd they do that? Oh, that's awesome.
I feel like knowing that kind of stuff makes the scenes better and less horrifying.
And I think it's best to know them after you've watched it. I think if you went in knowing everything, it wouldn't be nearly as fun.
Yeah. No, like when I first watched this, I didn't know that he was an android. I knew about the chest burster, of course.
Yeah,
But I didn't know that he was not human.
Yeah.
So...
And they don't really give it away until they, like, break his head off or whatever. Because you just think, what the hell's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
Why is he acting like that? Because, there's no clue that he's an android. They don't say it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, and this is our android.
Yeah.
He's not suspicious.
And he's very human-like.
Yes. Well, and then they also have a great actor playing him, too.
Yes, yeah.
He doesn't look weird. He looks like a normal guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they had somebody who's a little off. Like, if it was like Tim Curry, and he had his, like, kind of weird expressions, you'd be like, yeah, that guy's not quite right.
Yeah.
But instead you have, Sir Ian Holm, who, I think he was a Sir. Was he knighted? Or was John Hurt knighted?
I want to say they both were, but I guess I don't know for sure.
I don't either. But, you have this great actor who, again, does not look...
Sir John Vincent Hurt.
Okay, so he was...
And Sir Ian Holm Cuthbert.
Okay. I thought so, because whenever I say Ian Holm, I'm like, pretty sure there's a Sir in front of that, kind of like Captain Jack Sparrow. There's a captain in there with Ian Holt and John Hurt. I'm like, I think there's a Sir in there. But, yeah, he's not suspicious at all when you watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so we get the chest burster, comes out, and then it takes off, zips out of there. And they're all too stunned to go after it, which you can't blame them. What just happened? You'd be in shock.
It would be like 5 minutes before I even processed.
Yeah, because it's like...
I just witnessed.
You're not going to go chase it because you're like your friend's laying there dead. Everything's splattered with blood. And you're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, in this universe, as far as we know, there aren't aliens. So there's nothing for them to reference. They're just like, this is new and not normal. What the hell? What do we do now?
But yeah, they eventually decide to go hunt for this thing after they've given him a space funeral.
Yeah, shoot. Well, just like a ship. They've just shoved, they didn't keep the bodies.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
No, that's not it, yeah.
I don't think they probably didn't even build a morgue onto the ship. They probably weren't thinking somebody was going to die.
No, I think a lot of ship movies, they like cremate them first and then they flush them out. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, just get...
Or if it's a Viking, they cremate them while they're flushing them out.
But then in the case of Kane... The alien is gone, but that doesn't mean he's not still contaminated. So it's like, get it off the ship right now. We don't know what's left. We should have listened to Ripley.
They're hunting the creature, but the one guy, Brett, is looking for Jonesy, and he ends up finding a shed skin, which I'm wondering if they used like a snake skin for that thing, because it looked also very real. Yeah,
or like maybe even like cheesecloth.
I don't think it was cheesecloth, because I've used cheesecloth and it doesn't look plasticky like that.
Oh, yeah. There is a deleted scene where you see the xenomorph in their kitchen. It gets into the galley and it eats all their food.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, because that was my next question, because they eventually it finds him.
Yeah.
And it's huge. So I was thinking, how did it grow from this tiny little thing that could burst out of a human to this thing that towers over a human?
Yeah, it does grow a little too fast. Like, they don't give any indication that days have gone by, which they could have. But they don't specify days, but there is a deleted scene where it was in their galley and it ate all their food, because they go in there and it's trashed and they're like... I think there may have even been a scene where you see the little alien... but it didn't look very good. Like, the alien in this movie is only on scene for 4 minutes through the whole movie. It adds up to 4 minutes, and that's it. Which is kind of like Jaws. It works out better that way.
Yeah, it's like Jaws. The less you see of it, the better.
Well, Jaws also had the problem with the shark just not working ever.
Yes.
But
that hides the flaws, too.
It does. So, yeah, there is a deleted scene where you see it a little bit bigger when it's starting to get its color. and it eats all the food in their kitchen. And then there's a second deleted scene before it takes Brett, and he's, washing his face in the water, and you see it. There's a deleted scene where you see it up there, and there's no jump scare, there's no music. It's just up there looking down at him, and it's just, again, with not having sound, just the rattling of the chains and the dripping water. And it's black, so it kind of blends in, but when you see that moment, you're like, holy crap, there it is. So the one scene I wish, that's from the director's cut, that I wish was in this, because it gives you some perspective of it's right there, and he doesn't even know it. And then it gets him.
That scene brings up another question I had, like, what is that water? Because not thinking about it, your brain just goes rain. But they're in space.
It's, I imagine it's, condensation.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's, the ships and stuff, they have, like, the air regulate.
Yeah.
And I imagine when you do that, there's going to be condensation, and it's probably just where it builds up and just drips down. And since it's a mining ship, maybe they have water stores or something.
Okay.
But my guess, it's probably just built up condensation or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think that's like where they shower, so.
There wasn't enough coming down for a shower, but he sort of showers in it. Like
he just washes his face off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that could have been what drew the alien to that too. Maybe it needed some water. And was like, well, hang
on. For water and found a snack.
Yeah. That's like, but best of both worlds.
I'm glad I didn't get Jonesy, though, because Jonesy would have been a really easy little bite-sized thing.
I mean, yeah, I've seen videos of cats chase off bears. Maybe the alien took one look at that cat and was like, you know what? That's okay. It looks like a hateful little thing. I'll just get this human instead. It's easier.
The human doesn't have sharp, pointy things attached.
No. It won't claw me.
But yeah, he gets eaten, and the next step, I guess, is to go through the vents, which seemed like a bad idea to me, but Dallas goes through the vents, and he has a flamethrower, but that doesn't work.
No. And actually, the comment you made about Brett, it actually doesn't eat them. There's another deleted scene where Ripley's going through the ship with her flamethrower, and she finds Brett and Dallas cocooned to the wall, and they're just barely alive. Because this is what the aliens do, to keep the host alive. So my guess is that this particular...
so was it planning to, like, become another queen and lay some eggs?
Well, or it was going to go get... My guess is maybe it was going to go get facehuggers and bring them back.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a deleted scene where she finds them cocooned to the wall, barely alive, and then she flamethrowers them to put them out of their misery.
It seems like a really slow way to put somebody out of their misery.
Well, I think they were probably pretty close to death as is, but yeah. So I don't know what it does to the other people. It could just have killed them. It doesn't need a whole lot of hosts for it to, start their colony back up, so... But yeah, it gets... And I will say, the moment that it does get Dallas is supposed to be a jump scare, but it's not. Because it's kind of like one of those moments where the alien throws its hands up like it's going to give him a hug.
Yeah, I remember. I remember what you're talking about.
I think it probably would have been more effective if we would have seen the head come out, and then the second mouth, since they have the second mouths that come out, would have been a lot more effective, but... It was a jump scare, and they're like, we have this whole alien costume, and you're not going to see it, so let's just, here you go. Grab him.
That reminds me, I was going to mention, too, the secondary mouth. That is also from real life.
Oh.
Moray eels.
Oh, yeah, they do, don't they?
Have a second mouth inside their throat, which is horrifying.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, I already hate moray eels. They look so creepy and... Ugh.
Oh, I like them. They always look like they're plotting something. And they're deep in thought about it, but they're not sure what they want to do. Yeah, you're right. They do have kind of a secondary. And I'm pretty sure there's probably some fish out there that do, too, because that's how they lure in other fish to eat. Yep. That's
Fish
true.
are like the next step from bugs as to what horrifying things can happen to them and through them.
Well, they live in very
alien locations.
alien locations, which also would explain the xenomorph having all the strange things it does. So
Yeah.
do what you gotta do to survive.
Dallas is now gone, and this is where you find out that something's going on with Ash and the computer, and it's revealed that he's apparently been in contact with the company. They want the alien alive, and the crew is being deemed disposable.
Yep, the Weyland-Yutani Company, which I don't think they really mentioned too much in here, but it's in the lore that they're basically, like, the alien's not really the villain, it's just a creature.
Mm-hmm.
The real villain is the Weyland-Yutani Company who want these.
Yeah, and you especially get that in the next movie.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Ash is on the computer. Or no, Ripley. She figures out, she decodes the signal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think then that's when Ash walks in or something.
Yeah, and he attacks her and tries to kill her by shoving a magazine down her throat.
I know, I think he was trying to suffocate her.
I suppose.
It didn't, I mean, like, you're a robot, my dude. Just choke her out or something. And I suppose it was just for the dramatic effect, maybe.
Probably.
But yeah, even as a little kid, I'm like, I don't get it.
So where were they when that was that like his bedroom? Because if it's his bedroom, I have other questions.
No, I think it was, I would compare it to like a phone booth. I think it was like probably the office where the communication with Mother is located, like probably her main hard drive. Because back then, you know, not everything was like it is now, or you can have everything on a cell phone. Everything, even back then, computers and stuff were all giant and separate.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it was probably the main hub of the ship to communicate with Mother and to communicate. Because you wouldn't really want all that on your bridge. You have like a special location where you go to communicate with Mother and to contact the base. Because you probably wouldn't want them interrupting you if you're on the bridge and you're working. Mm-hmm. You'd have like go to this specific location. Plus it's more private, which is probably why Ash and stuff was using it. So that would be my guess. I don't think it was his personal quarters.
Well, the reason I had more questions is because if you look at the walls, there are women in various states of undress.
Well,
And it's like, if he's a robot, why?
I think it's more likely that the other men in the ship hung those up because
If it's not his bedroom, then I suppose that makes more sense. But I guess I interpreted that scene as happening in his bedroom.
it would be like, not maybe so much now, but, well, maybe so much now. If you've ever been in a mechanic shop where it's mostly men working, they have things on the walls of half-naked ladies all over, whether you can see them or not. Or like any man shed is going to have that. So my guess is the guys were bored. They live on this ship. While we're in here, let's just hang up some pictures. So that would be my guess. I don't think Ash was...
Yeah, that was the thing that was, I mean...
Unless he was
the magazine
really...
was more confusing, but like that...
Yeah.
Once you find out he's a robot, I was like, well, why do you
I mean,
hang up those
unless he was
pictures?
really trying to blend in by being like, look, I got naked ladies on my wall too, guys. Even though I'm an odd little guy and that doesn't fit my character at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. He could have a kink. I don't know. And then Parker, isn't he the one who rushes in next?
Yeah, because it isn't Lambert.
Yeah, not Lambert. Yeah, Parker comes in. And I like, though, that he immediately comes to her aid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not like... There's not really any questions asked. Pretty sure he just charges in and sees him trying to kill her and is like, whoa, whoa. Because doesn't Ash in turn try to attack him?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just turns into
a fight, and then he gets takes a hit that kind of
it
fries his
knocks off his
circuits.
head.
Yeah, fries his circuits a little because he has like a seizure first where he's spinning and making weird noises, and it's like that where you're like, what is happening? And then
And there's some white liquid.
the milk.
Yeah.
Because they're synthetic androids. It's not like a Data in Star Trek, where it's just a robot, or like Star Wars. It's synthetic, so it's got the liquids and kind of like more organic, to it, instead of just being a flat out mechanical robot that's just controlled by wires. Which is very unique. I don't know how often that had been done in shows. Because if you look at like Blade Runner, which Ridley Scott also did, they're synthetic androids too. They're not just robots. Like if you peel the skin off, like in Terminator, It's just an exoskeleton underneath and a bunch of cords, which you haven't seen.
Yeah. I've seen clips, but not the whole thing.
But, yeah.
It's an interesting idea for a robot, because I don't think I've seen that in any other movie.
The synthetic thing? Yeah. I think it's more common now because it gives you the chance to try to mix humans and robots together, like in some of the HBO shows where it's like, what is... And also kind of like Ghost in the Shell, where you're like, what is life and what is a consciousness and what's a soul? But that's way off topic, so we're just going to go back to Alien.
They knock off his head and you realize that he is not human, and they did a really good job for most of that. Like, there are parts where you can tell it's fake.
Yeah.
But when
his head's through the table, and they're obviously filming him.
Yeah.
And,
They did a really good job making it look realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, with all the little bits and pieces that are coming out of him and, just how they filmed it and how unique it is. Like I said, it's different. You don't see an exoskeleton. You just see organic pieces, and that's how he blends in so well with them.
And which, like I said, I haven't seen most of these other things that you're talking about, so that's more surprising to me when I've only seen robots that are
robots. Yeah, robots that are robots.
Yeah. But yeah, they end up disposing of him with a flamethrower, and they decide the next step is to self-destruct the ship and use an escape pod. Just abandon this thing.
Yep.
But Parker and Lambert don't make it that far.
Nope. Unfortunately, I hated it when my boy Parker got it. I was like, come on. Nope. Lambert's just there.
Yeah. So that leaves Ripley and Jonesy.
She goes back for that damn cat.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I would do that, because I love cats.
See, that's just
and I
it.
love Mr. Friendly, but would I go back and get him?
I mean, I suppose
alien chasing me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends the relationship, like the bond you have with this cat, because it makes sense they have a cat, because even though it's a ship in space, if they're going to be docked on a planet, they might have to worry about rodents, which is probably why the cat's there.
Okay.
And also probably just because petting a cat lowers your stress level. So it's like the crew, you're upset, here, go pet the cat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. If I thought of like Wyatt the beagle, like, yeah, I'd go back for him. I'm just thinking about Wyatt in that situation. I'm like, yep, I'd go back for the dog. So if it was my cat, yeah, I'd probably go back for it.
Yeah, I think it probably would depend on how far away the cat was. Like, if I knew that I could get there really quickly, yeah, I'd go back. Like, if it was a long trek through...
Yeah, all the way on the other side of the ship.
I think I probably would opt for escape.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll say your name over the PA system, and if you hear me, you can just come to the ship and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, it's probably one of those situations where you don't truly know what you would do until you're in that situation.
Yep. And at that point, it's probably like, well, everybody else is dead, so might as well try to get the cat. So I'm not by myself.
Yeah. But yeah, the cat is really cute. I wouldn't have wanted him to die.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Probably go back for him.
She sets the self-destruct sequence and narrowly escapes, and seems to escape the ship completely. She flies off in the little shuttle with the cat as the Nostromo explodes behind her. But it's one of those things where if you've seen other movies, you're like, that was too easy.
Yeah.
Apparently, though, that was where the movie was supposed to end at one point in the process.
There were like different... when I was doing my research last night, I found like 3 different like plausibilities that they had decided for it, and like the one that ended up making it in the movie is definitely the best one.
Yes.
And also the least like... One of them I won't even go into because I read it. I was like, what? Just less problematic and odd. Very odd.
Okay, well, Well, when we get to the end, let's talk about it, because there's another one that it might be the same one, but I'm not sure. Because there's another one I was going to talk about.
Is it with the alien sees her naked and he's like, ooh?
No, that is not.
Nope. All right. Nope, not that.
No,
Okay.
that's not what I did not see that one at all.
I read that and I'm like, it's kind of what they did in Alien Resurrection. Didn't work out then either. Why are you trying? Nope, don't do it. Nope, never mind. The other one was the alien like bites her head off or
That's the
something.
one that I saw.
Which, I mean, it would have been, if you wanted a dark ending, it would have been just fine. But you want the hero.
It would have made it into one of those movies that is why I don't like horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, and I can see if they would have shot it and done 2 endings like they do with some shows. They're like, if you don't like this ending, we got this one. You know, you can go with either one. But I'm glad and I have a feeling part of the reason they didn't do it is because Halloween came out earlier and people were really into the whole the final girl thing. Because like it happens in Halloween when Laurie Strode gets away. Happens in Texas Chainsaw Massacre where she seemingly gets away. So I think that's part of it, is that its audience are very receptive to the final girl, or final woman in this case, getting out alive, because it gives you that hope instead of it was all for nothing.
Yeah, and I've seen some movies where it was all for nothing, and it was like,
This was a waste of my
2
time. It's like, I didn't watch this to be sad.
Yeah.
I want to escape real life. Give me something to root for.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. First, we once again get Ripley in her underwear, which is, it is what it is. At least she's got a crop top on, I guess. And we see the alien. Of course, it's stowed away on the ship with her, and before she goes into cryosleep. But I think it's really interesting that it's not attacking her.
I couldn't figure that out, but I was wondering if it was like stuck.
I think, and my original thought when I watched it was just like, if I'm here and I'm quiet, I can get to where she's going. But somebody online theorized that maybe it was at the end of its life cycle. You know, kind of like how some flies live really short. Like, as far as the alien knows, it doesn't know that the ship blew up, the Nostromo's gone. As far as it's concerned, it did its job. It got some new hosts, it taped them to the wall, and now maybe the facehuggers will come crawling in and continue the colony. So somebody thought, well, maybe it just went there to die.
That's actually a good point.
And then it doesn't attack until she physically starts to kind of piss it off. And it's like, well, I might be dying, but I guess I'll take you out too.
Yeah, because like if we're going back to all the ways that it's like bugs, that does happen with bugs. Like the queen outlives the entire colony. Like she just makes more and they replenish themselves.
Well, isn't there a species of moth that doesn't even have a mouth? Like they don't even live like...
Mayflies.
It's mayflies. They like hatch, they grow, they breed, they die.
In a day.
In a day.
Yeah.
So... But I mean, again, it also kind of contradicts the more alien movies because the aliens seem to have longer life cycles. But we don't know that for sure. They all look the same. It could be a new alien every time we see it. But yeah, I always thought that maybe he was just like, if I hide here and I'm quiet, I can get her when she goes to sleep. But I also really like I just came here to die, leave me alone.
Yeah, I kind of like that explanation because it does make it more like all the insects that it's sort of like
an animal. Like it's not a horror. It's not Michael Myers out to kill you. It's just an animal.
Yeah.
That did its job that it's hardwired to do in its little brain because they're kind of like an ant colony, and now it's just looking for a quiet place to die.
Yeah, that makes sense. But though if that is how it ended up, she didn't need to blow up the Nostromo. It would have crawled off and died, and she could have flown the whole thing home.
Yeah, if they would have known that, but like
But she would have no way of knowing.
No, because they'd never seen these creatures before. They couldn't have been like, well, it's gonna die in like 2 days, so let's just lock ourselves in one room, and it'll die, and then we'll be fine. But who knows? And it could be different life cycles for different xenomorphs. You know, like maybe the workers, like the low-lying ones, die quicker. The queens have longer lifespans, whoever's in between there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, she runs to the other side of the room and quickly puts on a spacesuit before it climbs out of the wall and she straps herself in and like sprays it with some kind of a gas. I wasn't sure exactly what that was supposed to be.
I don't know, mace. I don't know. Space mace.
She ends up blasting it out of an airlock, and of course it clings to the ship, but she manages to fry it with the rocket boosters, and it is either dead or just floats off into space and will die.
I'm assuming it died. They haven't really established that these animals can, withstand the vacuum of space. We're not like a Marvel movie where you just put on a face mask and you're fine. I would assume, since it doesn't have oxygen to breathe, and it's a creature that I would assume it would freeze and die like everything else would. It's kind of horrifying if it didn't. It's just floating out there waiting for the next ship to grab onto, like Thor.
It's like those things in Star Wars. I think they're called like exogorths, the giant moon worm things.
Yeah, the worms.
And it lives in an asteroid.
As a kid, I'm like, I don't think that's how space works, but okay.
There's a lot of stuff with Star Wars I just forgive because it's another galaxy.
It's far, far away.
Their laws work different than ours.
Yeah, they don't follow. Kind of like Marvel. You get Star-Lord outside the ship with just his face mask.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I don't care if you got a face mask. You're dead. But anyway. But yeah, she blasts it out of the airlock and gets into the cryo sleep with Jonesy and sets the course towards home. She
records one final log entry. And that's where this deviates from that other one we were talking about, because the thing that I read said that their other ending that they had planned, which I'm glad they didn't go through with, was to have the alien bite her head off.
Yes.
And then it records the which
in Dallas's
technically
voice.
That is a really good ending.
But can you
But not a good ending that I like. Like it's a whoa.
It's a
like Twilight Zone type of ending.
It's a comedy ending. It's like watching Venom versus Carnage and he uses the computer. It just doesn't work. It's in the comic books. But I just can't imagine the alien sitting at the computer with his little claws, typing away, and then like his mouth, which has no lips or tongue, and he's got a does the second mouth talk? Does it like pop out and it's like rah, 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 rah. Because it said it was supposed to imitate Dallas.
Well, the thing I read said it was going to bite her head off and then take her voice to record.
Jesus Christ.
Which now that you say that it would be funny, it kind of would be.
It would be.
I didn't think of it as I didn't think too specifically on how it would work. I just thought of it like literally killing her and pretending to be her.
Yeah.
That's more horrifying, and it's a good Twilight Zone-esque ending. But like it would kind of take away the drama if it was just like...
It would be hilarious.
Speaking in her voice.
Especially if you saw its like little mouth moving. Like if they did it from behind and you couldn't tell what was happening, you'd be like, what the hell? But if they show the little second mouth pop out and it's like, this is Ripley. Like, what? You would just be like, well, it's kind of like when you watch Signs. You get to the end. Have you seen Signs?
Signs is one of my favorite movies.
Okay. And you get to the end and you see the alien and you're like, oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah, the alien.
All right.
I mean, I like Signs, but it's not specifically because of the alien that I like Signs. I like the movie around the alien.
Well, yeah, but you see it and it just ruins the suspension. It's kind of like in certain parts of Jaws where you're like, oh, that's a fake shark.
I think for me now, I can see why you say that. But like back when I first watched Signs, I'd seen nothing like Alien. I'd seen none of these. It had much more of an impact on me in that way. But looking back, they could have done a little bit better with the alien design.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in theater with my best friend at the time, and we were both terrified. Because, we're in Iowa, we got corn. And it was just terrifying. And then you see it, and you're like, man. And then you're like, the water, and I'm like, there's water particles in the air. I think,
that's true. I never even
I think they were trying to do like what War of the Worlds did.
Yes.
But that made total sense.
That made more sense than water allergies.
I'm like, there's water particles in the air. What if it rains? What if they're in the jungle and it's raining and there's a monsoon? Mm-hmm. They're gonna be melting out there like the Wicked Witch.
I don't think these aliens thought their plan through very well.
No. But anyway, we're just off topic again. Yeah, the ending I read about was that she strips naked and then the alien pops out and he's like, ooh, you're pretty. And I'm like, no.
That makes about as much sense as like that's one of the things I have with
typing at the computer.
No, I was just thinking of Star Wars again. That makes about as much sense as Jabba having a thing for human-looking women too.
Jabba
like,
was just a pervert.
Yeah, like why does Jabba like human-shaped people? He should like slug-shaped people.
No, he's fat phobic. He don't like fat ladies. He wants the sexy aliens with their dongles. He looks at the other huts. He's like, ugh, I'm not into slugs. No. But no, that was the thing I read. And I was just like, gotta draw the line somewhere, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, draw the
that would
line.
have been a terrible ending.
Something similar does happen in Alien Resurrection, and the whole time in the theater, I was just like, no, why am I here? Why am I here? I'll give that movie one credit. The aliens look fantastic.
What
But
year
they
was that?
drool a lot. A lot. Like, stop it. I didn't write it down. I am thinking 97 or 98.
Alien Resurrection?
Yeah.
97.
97, yep. But, okay.
So that would have been like 10, 11 years more advancement in special effects.
And you can tell for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like the aliens themselves, like I said, they look very shiny though, but they drool a lot for some reason. Like they're just constant like, and I'm like, can somebody give him a napkin? Why is he drooling so much? Help him. Help him. But, so is that for Alien, or did you have anything else? Or any closing thoughts?
It was good. I don't think I love it like you do, but
Yeah, well,
I'm glad I watched it.
it's a good example of a suspense horror movie. Because it is very suspenseful. Like, when Dallas is in the vents, it's very suspenseful. Because everybody's freaking out. And you're freaking out because you like Dallas. You know, that's why it's very important for that movie, with the exception of poor Lambert, that you love these people and that you can tell that they care about each other. They have a very close bond. And I thought I read somewhere that they filmed all the beginning parts after everything else because they had already been working together for so long
Oh, that'd be a
that
good idea.
their own bonds with each other were stronger. And
Yeah.
and I know, because I know they did that in Aliens too with all the Marines. They filmed a lot of the beginning last because they had been filming for months, so they all knew each other and they were more comfortable with each other, and so their friendship came off as more real.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's why, you know, when things happen to these characters, you care. Because you like them. Like, and nobody's like, other than Ash, like, nobody's a scumbag. Nobody's, you know, there's no, like, a lot of movies these days, they would have, one of them would have to try to rape somebody. You know what I mean? There would be something to, like, spice it up between them and add extra drama. But we
And give
don't.
them a real reason to be
Yeah,
eaten.
but we don't. Yeah, exactly. You cheer. You want them to die because he's a scumbag. But we don't need that drama here because we have an alien. We want to root for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Halloween. Where you're like, just kill her. She means nothing. Get them. They're having premarital sex on the couch when she's supposed to be babysitting. Get her. You know, it's just how those movies are. It's just like the trope that horror movies have. You do certain things, that means you're going to die. But this movie avoids those tropes. You don't have them. One, because, yeah, like you said, they're all older. But we don't need them because we've got this thing that's hunting them down, and we don't know why. It's just, yeah, I love it. I think it's just such a great movie, and it's just so fun to watch, and there's just so many little things. Like, one thing I forgot to mention was the sets for the Nostromo. They built each set as one piece to help with the claustrophobia. So if you wanted to go through these sets, you had to go through the whole thing. There were no openings on the sides. There was no extra lighting.
Oh.
And like the people filming, like they didn't want that. They're like, we need places so we can come and go. And they're like, no, This is going to be one whole thing, and you're going to have to go through the whole damn thing to get to the other side.
That's a good idea.
It is, because it helps with the claustrophobia, because then you also, you don't need any unnecessary cuts. I love long shots. I'm a sucker for a good one shot with no cuts. And that's why another reason why these movies are so suspenseful is because when Ripley's coming down the hallway, you don't need any cuts because there's the set keeps going. So you can just follow her in this one long take. And then it builds the suspense because it's like, we're not cutting, so where's the alien?
Yeah.
And it is a hard pick between this and the next one. It really is. It kind of depends on the mood.
Yeah.
Like, you want to watch a horror movie full of suspense, or do you want to watch an action movie with horror elements?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what Aliens is.
Yeah. They were both really good. Like I said, I'm not sure how I would pick a favorite because, like, I don't absolutely love them like you do, so I'm just trying to, like, pick which one I would like better than the other. And they both have elements that I like over the other one for different reasons.
Well, and the one thing with Alien is what you can't deny is that it did change the way movies are made.
Oh, yeah. Well, watching it, I can see, like, how it influenced other things that I already know I like.
Yes. It literally, it's kind of like Jurassic Park in that way. To quote the Joker, you changed things. And this is one of those movies that definitely changed things. Like, you hadn't seen an alien like that in any other movie before that. Like, if you look at some of the movies that came before Alien, like, they look like, you're like, wow, really? That's your... It's kind of like when you watch Jurassic Park and you look at any dinosaur movies that came out around that same time. It's heaps bigger.
Yeah. And this is totally off topic, but like with Jurassic Park, you can tell that they've influenced how other people imagine dinosaurs too. And the most egregious example is now, I don't know, it's like a 50-50 shot whether it's going to be like a scientifically accurate Dilophosaurus or if it's going to have a neck frill.
Yeah.
It's like they must have seen Jurassic Park and just assumed
that they had neck frills.
They have neck frills.
I mean, and like...
Which I like the neck frill idea.
I do too. I mean,
but that's not... There was no scientific basis for that.
No. I mean, I know they based him off the little bearded dragon and his little neck frill, but if you're going to be honest, if it wasn't, if Dilophosaurus, we're way off topic now, but if Dilophosaurus had a neck frill, it's not going to be used for the way they used it in the movie. It's either going to be used to scare people away, like the bearded dragon in Australia. Is that what it's called, a bearded dragon? The little thing in Australia that runs after you.
I think it's called a frilled lizard. Bearded dragons don't have the frill.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the
little
pets.
Tiny
The
horns.
pet store. Yeah, the little Australian guy who frills it out. He's going to do that to make himself look bigger, or in the case of Jurassic Park, when he frills up, it's very colorful. It's for mating. He's going to frill that up,
kind of what I figured.
show his colors, and be like, "Hey, look at me, I'm sexy." You know, it's not going to be a threat because it gives away your advantage on your prey. You frill out, you're all colorful, he's gonna see ya and run. So, okay. On to aliens. No more little dinosaurs. Ran about dinosaurs for hours, but not today.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the I Heart Movies podcast. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or to the I Heart Movies YouTube channel. Make sure to follow my co-hosts as well. Any relevant links will be in the description for easy access. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.